Welcome to the podcast, Journeys of Deepening Trust. I'm in a process of simplifying the name of the podcast, but it has been following spirit without hesitation and about people's stories around that. So I'm just framing that because I have with me Tiffany, who's returning to share the rest of her story, which we kind of stopped halfway through and left it on a cliffhanger last time, didn't we, Tiffany?
We did.
Yeah. So it's good to see you again, Tiffany.
It's good to see you too. I'm very excited about coming back.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I've been looking forward to seeing you and yeah, sort of curious about the rest of your story. So that's where we're going to start. I'm going to so you are in Peru and following your guidance, and if I remember rightly, you ended up at a retreat center. So would you like to start wherever you want to start, wherever feels comfortable for you, as it's been a while since we last spoke.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been quite excited. I felt like I had a promise to fulfill by delivering on the cliffhanger. But it just also there's an element that makes me chuckle about this story. So yes. So I went to the retreat center, and like as I said last time, after I'd arrived and done this authentic ceremony, I then decided to move myself to stay at the retreat center. And that led on to various different things. But what made me say about the cliffhanger is that I was in the town where the shaman from the magic hand shop had said, go to the ruins and go to this temple and do this thing on the full moon, which I didn't do because I got to the retreat center instead. And so there was also this, oh, I need to go to this temple. And it's right high up on the hill or mountain even, on the edge of town. And I'd looked up, or you can walk there from the village. And so one morning I got up really early and thought, oh, today's the day I'm going to go to this temple. And I'd also looked up that there were some buses that went up there, tourist buses, but I was too early for the tourist bus. So I had this great adventure. Again, just following spirit of today's the day I'm going to this temple. And there weren't any buses because it was too early, but this truck came by of work people going off to the fields. So I jumped into this truck and said, oh, I'm going to the temple. And they kept pointing way over into the distance. And I'm going, oh, okay, well, maybe they're, pointing at something else. Anyway, we come to a junction in the road halfway up the mountain, and they go off down this track. So they let me off. So I just start walking up the road. It's kind of a little bit of a switchback road that goes up to this mountain. In the end, I decided I'd just climb up the banks in between the switchback and try and make it a little quicker. And I'd already encountered a pack of wild dogs and all sorts of other adventures on the way. And then I hear, Senorita, Senorita, and there's a taxi saying, do you want to ride? And I'm like, oh, yeah, please. So I jump into this taxi, get to the ruins. Oh my God, what an adventure. Back then I had a really massive fear of heights, which has dissipated since I received the Munay Ki rites, which is a part of this story. But at that time I had a terrifying fear of heights that I'd had since a child. And this site has so many precipices. So I'd wandered up there like it was a summer's day in a skirt and a pair of Crocs with a little shoulder bag. It was more like something that you needed hiking shoes, and I kept meeting people coming up from the village going, "Oh, fair play to you walking," and I'm thinking, well, what's ahead of me if they're saying that? So yeah, I had this wonderful experience of going to this site and doing all the spiritual things there, and engaging with the site. But the story really is, then I tried to come back down from the site and I couldn't find the road back to the village, and I kept going round and round, and I'd get to this point and it looked like it just disappeared over the edge of the top of the mountain. So I'm like, well, that's not the way. And then the only other way down was like through this whole section of the site where I'd be going down the steps, coming back up. And by then I was getting into a bit of a panic with my vertigo. So I came across this workman. And at this point, I'm nearly hyperventilating with my fear from my vertigo. And so I can't, can you show me I didn't really speak much Spanish then, but I managed to communicate with him. I was looking for the path to the village. So he goes and gets his shoes and gives me a piece of Andean mint to sniff to calm my nerves down, and takes me to the path that goes to the top of the mountain. And like literally, if this is the top of the mountain, there's like this round thing. The path down was this kind of spiral path around the edge of the mountain. I mean, like off my radar of possibilities of things that I would do. Stairs and heights were the biggest, and spiral, bad combo for my vertigo. Anyway, this poor guy helps me down this spiral outside of the mountain staircase, and gets me to a level where now there's huge irrigation terraces that are, like almost my full leg span to get down each step. And he kind of leaves me with, despacho, slowly. And I'm thinking there's no other way I'm going than slowly. And there's nothing to hang on to. There's no rails, I mean, I'm clambering down this irrigation terrace till I get to a level that's low enough and feels safe enough where I can like stop and breathe again. And I'd realized that back at the retreat center, one, they didn't know where I was because I'd just vanished off at like 7 o'clock in the morning or earlier before anyone had got up. And two, I'd offered to cook lunch for the community that day. So I thought I better tell them where I was, but I was still in a bit of a state of panic at this point. So I rang the retreat center and I left a message for the woman who was kind of managing it at the time, and just to say, this is me. I've been to the ruins and I got lost and la la la, whatever I said, but with this panicked voice. But I'm on my way back. So I make my way back from the thing, and that's fine. And I cook lunch, and that's all well and good. What transpires from that is that someone else was jointly managing the retreat center, and she'd been away. So she was on duty that morning. So she's the one who picks up my phone call. And she's going to the other woman, who is this person, Tiffany? There's like this really panicked phone call message about her being. So this person is now one of my best friends. We made a really good connection at the site, but we chuckle because our, how did you meet? And she'll go, oh, well, I picked up this really panicked message from this crazy sounding woman on the voicemail. So yeah, that just always makes me laugh. But the beauty of it is that I suppose from the retreat center, there's two things that kind of changed my life as a result of going there and following my spirit to not go up the ruins the first day to the temple, but to go to the retreat center in the first place. And that was that I learned about the existence of the Munay Ki, and that then became a very big transformative part of my personal healing path. That when I went to Peru, I thought I'd looked at everything and dealt with everything, and that I'd really only done that on the mental, approaching the emotional level, as opposed to really deeply, I'd taken maybe a couple of layers off the onion, but I was nowhere near the center. And that whole trip really opened me up to the next stage of my journey. One part of that was the shaman's meditations that the guy gave me with the pendant that I mentioned before. The other was then receiving the Munay Ki rites and everything that is a path of in the path of transformation. But also while I was at the retreat center, they were running an ayahuasca ceremony for, I don't know if I told this in the first part, they were running an ayahuasca ceremony for one of the dogs on the land, well, the two dogs on the land have been poisoned, but one of them was really like at death's door. So they did an ayahuasca ceremony, healing ceremony. Obviously the dog can't take it. So someone took ayahuasca and then came out with an eagle feather to do the healing on the dog, which really, it did work. The dog purged and got better. But when the guy came out of the ceremony to do that with the eagle feather, as he went back in, I gave him a hug. And I felt the living organism of the plant medicine running through his body. It was the most extraordinary encounter for me at that time. I'd just not encountered anything like that at all. And it felt like part of something jumped into my heart in that encounter with him and with the medicine through him. Because
I feel very often, so I'm just interrupting you, but with these different plants, and not just those like ayahuasca, but any plants really, where we work with them on a spiritual level, they often call us years before we even get to the point of ingesting them, if we ever do ingest them. And we start to develop this beautiful relationship. So that, I think that really, it's more than resonates, it sings to me, you saying about that connection. I think that's beautiful. So thank you.
Yeah. No, and it is. I mean, thanks for bringing that in, because I personally, since then, I would totally agree with you, and I feel I have a much deeper resonance with plants on the spiritual, plant medicine on the spiritual level, as opposed to ingesting. And there are some that I have ingested, and I would say I've probably had I've had a preferred experience through connecting with the spirit of the plant as opposed to actually ingesting it. And I haven't been called to ingest ayahuasca, but it remains an ally in spirit form since then. And it was just so, I had such a profound realization for me, for where I was at on my personal journey at that time, and bearing in mind this is the end of 2009, beginning of 2010. It's a long time ago. And I was only a few years into my more shamanic way of approaching life. But it gave me the realization that I needed, that then took me to my next level of healing and working with another teacher when I came back to Scotland, which one of my clan sisters from my shamanic clan had already said, this is what you need to do. And I could feel there was a resistance in, well, I've looked at all of that, and then this encounter was like, okay, I can see what I still need to do. And, then I was able to go to that next teacher to have that other level of expansion and healing. I mean, I could spend the whole time just talking about that trip to Peru, but I won't. But that same friend that I met, you know, we had such a deep, you know, it turns out that we're soul sisters and have been in other lifetimes and other civilizations together, going back a long, long time. But within the context of the journey, like I said, I had a very rough itinerary. So there was, I'm going to spend part of the trip in the Sacred Valley, and then at some point I'm going to go to Lake Titicaca. That was the only other thing I knew that I wanted or needed to do on the trip. And she introduced me to this amazing guy down there. You know, go and meet him. He'll sort it all out for you where you need to go. And again, it's following spirit, or it's deepening trust. You know, off I go, jump on a bus down to Puno, meet this person I've never met in my life, just on the recommendation of someone I've just met. You know, and wow, you know, I wanted, as I said before, I just wanted authentic experiences, not tourist shamanism, not pseudo shamanism, but just authentic relation with the people, the culture. And so he said, oh, you know, there's here, there, and these different places to go. And through that, I went with one of his friends, again, I only just met her. She and I went off with my very bad Spanish and somehow managed, you know, a couple of day trip off through into Bolivia to go to the island of the sun on Lake Titicaca. And from there, we took a boat trip. There's a sacred stone in Lake Titicaca called the Piedra Verde, the green stone, and it's a very sacred place that a lot of people don't know about. And basically, even the boatman was very hesitant. I don't know whether it was just that we were two women, but we first went to this other island called Koa, where the shamans, there's a shamanic cave that the shamans go into to do ceremony. And the boatman said that we couldn't moor there because of the waters. And again, I don't know whether that was true or whether he just didn't want us going into the cave. But anyway, we landed on the island. We were able to do this despacho ceremony, an offering to the spirits on the island. So you know, this is a place that a lot of people haven't even heard of. So to have the privilege of actually being able to go there and do ceremony, and then we took our offerings and our prayers. You pray into the kintu, to the leaves in the tradition, and blow prayers in, and then we went and made offerings to the lake and to the green stone. And you know, for me, this was like, you know, pinching myself lucky. How lucky am I, you know, little me, being taken to these very sacred places. And we then returned to Puno, met up with this gentleman, Ernesto, and it's like, we need to go to this other island now. There's this annual festival that happens. There's these two temples on the island. And every year, the two shamans of the island, one runs a ceremony in this temple, one runs a ceremony in that temple. And then they have a race after the ceremonies, and whichever group of people get down to the bottom first determines what the harvest or the abundance of the island's going to be for the year. And But he said, oh, there's this ceremony of the shamans. And he found a way for us to go to this ceremony. And this island doesn't have any light, like street lights or roads or anything. You have to walk everywhere, and it was dark. And we went to one place and it wasn't there. Then it was just like, again, through following spirit, deepening trust, we were guided by the people that we encountered that led us to the place where this ceremony was being held, which looked like a cattle shed. And then when we went inside, there was the shamans sitting on a raised platform, all of the women of the council and community with their garments. And then the rest of the room was filled with all of the local men with their ponchos and coca leaf bags. And so myself and Eliana, Ernesto's friend, were the only women apart from the council women, and I was the only foreigner in that room. Everyone else was Peruvian or 100% indigenous. And and I'm just, you cannot get more authentic than that, in terms of, I wanted to go to an authentic ceremony, and I'm suddenly at this private ceremony of the shamans where they're doing a cocoa leaf reading to determine who's going to be in which temple the next day, and then doing prayers for the whole community, for the whole island, every single person named personally, and everyone in that room named and the leaves put in. So there was this mountain of coca leaves. So it was the most extraordinary experience, where, even this many years later, I'm like, wow, how did I get so lucky to have that experience? But again, it comes back to that trust, spirit, showing up with genuine intentions as well, I think is a big part of that. Mm-hmm. So that was really powerful, and the ceremonies itself was extraordinary, with people coming from all the different communities. It was just like a cacophony of sound and color, and I remember it like it was yesterday. So that's probably my highlights. Although just to bring a little, another amazing thing into that trip was, I'd met some other friends at the people that I met in the crystal shop from the retreat were coming down to Arequipa, where they'd lived before. And they said, oh, we'll meet you down there, because I was continuing on. So they arranged to stay in a hostel there, and I went from Puno to Arequipa to meet them. And the journey itself was another story, but I got to the hostel and they were delayed because there were floods in Cusco, and so they weren't arriving until, they were supposed to arrive in the night, but they were arriving later that day because the buses weren't running. And so I'm sitting at this in the gardens of this hostel, which is also like a Spanish school and things. So I'm thinking, okay, my plans for the day were to be with these people and they hadn't showed up, so what was I going to do? And then I'm sitting there and there's like someone over there that I recognize, and there's a woman from Glasgow who was one of my personal training clients, one of my last personal training clients, and she happened to have gone on a volunteering trip to Peru and was there having Spanish lessons in this garden.
Whoa.
I'm just like
what are the chances?
This is just wild, So I went up and went, well, fancy meeting you here. And she's like, what are you doing here? So we had a lovely day together. just so extraordinary. Yeah, amazing, amazing. So yeah, as I say, I could just talk the whole time about Peru, but that's nearly the end of the trip. There were other bits, but yeah, I think that whole journey just showed so many amazing opportunities and experiences, and that wouldn't have been available to me if I hadn't followed spirit and I hadn't followed trusting each time. You're going to go here, go there, meet this person. Everything was like divinely orchestrated. Is all I can say. It was
Yeah.
extraordinary.
I call it the magic road. There's something that happens when you go into an immersive experience like that, and the whole experience is immersed. And it feels like there's a different kind of energy, and it's difficult to just pick out components of it because everything's so interlinked and divinely orchestrated.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So that's Peru. I've delivered on the cliffhanger. the
Yeah,
cliff, the
there's
cliff
sort of
being the
several
cliffhanger.
by the sound of it.
Well, it was really for me when I said it's a cliffhanger. I was thinking of the top of that mountain
Yeah.
that just terrified the life out of me. The other visits that I had to Peru afterwards, I always called that mountain my nemesis. Just like
Have
looking
you
at it and going,
have you been back?
yes, yeah, yeah. I've been back to Peru and I've been back up to that temple. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's a powerful place. Peru is definitely a place of transformation for me.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so after Peru, what happens? Do you go back to Glasgow, back to Scotland, or
Yeah. So I go back to Scotland. We're at the beginning, around February-ish of uh, 2010. And really from there, I went on this massive healing journey. So everything, I had the shaman's tools, the shaman's meditation was going on, the receiving the Munay Ki rites and the path of transformation. I received all of the rites over one weekend, and it activated a profound experience of healing, which, if you remember, I'd given up all of my work before I left, and then I understood why, because I couldn't go out the door. Because I mean, literally, it was like, this is coming up for healing, this is coming up for clearing. Have a look at this, and like literally, as soon as something came and I dealt with it and faced it, then the next thing came, and I had a very intense 6 months of profound shift. And I went from also being very much, not very much, but I had had much more of a yang way of being. And this swung
yeah,
me absolutely the other way into, I just cannot make a plan. I don't know what I'm facing today. I don't know who I'm going to be today. And, I literally just went into a world of non-planning, flow, very yin feminine approach to, I'm just going to have to take each day as it comes because this is kind of beyond my control, other than my response to what I'm facing, and this would be in the night as well. Didn't know
oh,
who was going to have visiting me or dreaming, and it was absolutely incredible, challenging, but
oh, I bet.
incredible period of growth.
Just for just for the record, my dog is got up and she's on my lap, and I'm not sure what she's trying to do. I'm trying to help her, but I did the wrong thing.
Oh, bless her. Bless her. Oh yeah, no, that was kind of the movie backdrop soundtrack to my experience.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, yeah, pretty much like that if you want to put a sound
Ouch.
on it. Um, so yeah, that, and I was also working with this other teacher that I mentioned that the ayahuasca opened me to embracing going. And so through 2010, 2011, went through this really, really stripping back. I mean, we've been talking about the year of the snake that we're just leaving now.
Mm.
And my God, was that I don't know if it was the year of the snake, but it was certainly of that clearing and shedding. My friend and I, the friend that I met in Peru, we have a joke because 2010 was so intense for both of us. We spent New Year together, 2010 going into 2011. And we were like, see you later, 2010, adios. Can't wait to embrace this 2011. And last year we kept joking. Well, we thought 2010 was something. Well, 2025 was, like the icing on the, like 2010 was a walk in the park compared to 2025. It's like the evolution of our spiritual journey. It's not linear, it's not flat. We're on a spiral of evolution. And so, whatever else still needed clearing at a deeper level was going on, or, the next layer of what we need to learn in our soul's evolution was definitely up for me last year. But yeah, we make a joke. That's how intense 2010 was. But that 2025 topped it. But so yeah, and 2011 really was another continuation of the clearing, and so the next point I would say where I get the following spirit thing is I suddenly start hearing this word in my head at the end of 2011. Palenque, Palenque, Palenque. So a friend of mine at the time used to be a tour guide in Latin America. So I said, do you know what Palenque is? I keep hearing this in my head. And he said, oh yeah, it's a temple site in Mexico. So I said, oh, well, keep hearing that. I think I need to go. At the beginning of 2012, February 2012, I was working at a holistic fair. I used to do like the body and soul fairs in Glasgow at that time and in Edinburgh. And so I had my stall doing my thing. And there was someone on the stall next to me who I'd never met. She was doing some reflexology. I'm very, very wary of who works on me on any, even if it's just touching my feet. I'm a little where, who are you? What's your energy? For some reason, I've got a bit of a runny nose today, so apologies for the tissues. Anyway, at the end of the weekend, I thought, you know what, her energy seems okay. I've been standing on my feet. What harm in going and having a bit of reflexology? Well, I didn't know what else she did until I sat in the chair. And then she sits. So not only does this woman do reflexology, but she does all sorts of channeling. And she says, wow, you've had this Mayan past life, and I can see this headdress and this necklace and la 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 la. You need to go to Palenque. And I'm like, yeah, I do. I've never met her before in my life. Didn't know anything about Palenque in my head. And I don't need a third sign. you know, I was already game for going on the voice in my head, but now I've got someone telling me I've had a Mayan past life and describing all of this stuff and telling me that she'd never channeled at that level before, you know, like she'd plugged into this energy through me. So then I say to my friend that I met in Peru, I need to go to Palenque. I need to go to Mexico. And she says, well, I've just finished organizing a group trip to Mexico for December 2012. Well, like, okay, well, I think I'm meant to be coming on that with you then. But she wasn't going to Palenque in the group trip. So I decided to go out a week early and fulfill this calling to go to Palenque. I literally, you know, talk about volition. I did the flights from the UK to Mexico are anywhere between 8 and 12 hours, depending where you fly from and to. Say it's 10, pick the middle ground. So a 10-hour flight, and I get off at Cancun, go straight to the bus station and get on a 15-hour bus to Palenque because I'm so keen just to get there. Yeah. Luckily, I was so tired that I got on the bus, put my eye mask on, and woke up about 2 hours from Palenque, the breakfast stop. So I didn't see, we traveled through the night. There wouldn't have been much to see. And then on the breakfast stop, I met this woman on the coach, and we got chatting, and I was telling her, you know, I was on a mission, didn't know why I was coming again, you know, same story as Peru. Been told I need to come, I'm just showing up. Again, I booked one night in a hostel so that I could arrive in Palenque and then decide what I was doing next. And she said, oh, there's this hotel that's like in the jungle part, you know, the closest hotel to the ruins. And that's where she was going to stay. I was like, okay, now I've learned something. Oh, yeah, like I'd already got the next step before I'd even got off the bus even. And it was so funny because when we got to Palenque and got off the bus, I was gonna say goodbye to her. Didn't even see her, and I'm thinking, did I imagine that I met this woman on the breakfast stop and talked to her? Because she was nowhere to be seen. You know, it's like, where did she vanish to? Yeah. Anyway, check into my hostel, and then I'm like, right, well, I'm only there for one night, so I better go down to this hotel and sort out getting a room there. I didn't hang about in those days. You know, it's just like, right, we're on a mission. This is what we need to do. So I go down, book however many nights. I think I was there for a week actually. So I booked the rest of like 6 nights or whatever it was, remainder of the trip in their place. And either that day or the day that I moved in, I then bump into the woman again. And then she tells me about this magical, oh yeah, you can get to the ruins from here through the jungle. I mean, you can just get on a van and go to the entrance. But she tells me that if you go over the back fence of this hotel, and she goes, yeah, you know, you walk along this path and you come to this bit and you go over that and the, you know, very, very, very vague directions of go. Well, me being a double Sag, you know, I've had a Mayan past life. This is my home, you know. So of course I'm going to make my first entrance into the ruins through this back path. Oh my God, scared the life out of myself. I mean, literally, I went over to this fence, just in the jungle. You know, got to bear in mind, I've never been there before in this life. And the instructions were really vague. And, you know, talk about trusting and following spirit. Let's bring it back to the theme. So I'm walking down this. So she says, you over the fence, you go in this direction, and then there are a couple of landmarks. Like there's a hill, and then there's a left turn, and then you come to the river, and then you go across the river, and then you're there. And I'd get so far, and I think, well, I can't really see where I'm meant to go next. But I look back, and I go, well, I haven't got the directions for going back. I'm just going to be lost in the jungle if I turn back. So I'm just going to have to go forward and hope I encounter these landmarks. And there would be like a bird that flew, or a light, or a butterfly, or something that would show me the next step.
Beautiful.
And so I did. I got to the river, got across, got into the ruins. I mean, a bit naughty, sneaking in. Back then it was only about £3 to enter, so it wasn't like I was robbing them too much of the entrance fee. But there was this feeling of, I've been here before and this is my home, so why shouldn't I? It just felt weird to, or it felt right that I was going into my land. I don't know, I can't explain it, but that's what it felt like. But it was a bit terrifying going in through the jungle. So that was my first encounter of going into the Palenque ruins. And then, it's just the most extraordinary place that has these two levels of, one of them's, they're both excavated, but one of them's less temple-y. It was more of the accommodation-y place. And then when you go up to the upper level, you've got the bigger temples. And it's just like, just is in the standing place. On another day, I decided to go roaming in the jungle again. There's another jungle path nearer the ruins that you used to be able to wander in, and you can't so much now. But I went on the path and then went off the path on an exploration, and got well and truly lost that time, and came across this temple in the middle of nowhere, which was both exciting and a little eerie, like to suddenly happen upon this temple in the middle of the jungle. And then I was trying to find the temple site, the main temple site. So in the end, I decided to follow the river, because I knew the river flowed through to the site. So I was back to that trusting and also following nature, following spirit. And eventually I came to a path, and there was a guy doing some renovation to the path. And I said, which way to the ruins? And then I was able to find my way in. And that day, there was something going on. All I could hear was drum beats. So for the latter part of that, knowing I was now heading in the direction of, I just followed the sound of the drum beats. Mm-hmm. And that brought me into the site, because I was still in the jungle at this point. So then I found this path that brought me in. I hope the officials of Mexico aren't watching this. They'll be after me. Never said this publicly before. Naughty girl. Anyway, so I follow the drum beat, and there's this big dance extravaganza happening in the plaza of the temple site. And so I go to watch the drumming, and there's someone sitting on the temple above watching. And so I look up and smile at this guy, and then go about doing what I'm doing, enjoying the dance. Then when it finished, he came up and he says, "Hi, fancy going for coffee?" And there'd been another chap that I'd met in the ruins during the week, and So he came up as well. So off I go for coffee with these two people back at my hotel, and in the cafe, I hasten to add. And then off they go because they're staying at the same place down the road as each other. But the chap that had asked me about the coffee had said, "Oh, maybe I'll see you in the ruins tomorrow." So that was my last day in Palenque. So I went to the ruins, and I spent the day there. But I was at one point I was sitting somewhere I shouldn't be sitting, so I made myself invisible. And I think I probably made myself invisible to him because he'd spent the whole day looking for me in there, and I'd been sitting in a very, very obvious place. So it was really interesting. So I thought, okay, well, he hasn't shown up, and I've done my meditations and connecting and everything that I came in here to do. So I'll just have one last wander around because I knew it was my last day there before I was going off to join the group trip that my friend was running, which was across Mexico, you know, back on the long bus ride. And then I hear my name called. And it's a young woman that I met at the Cancun bus station like a week before. You know, again, it's just one of these extraordinary that they happen to be going there for the day. And so go and see how they're doing and what they're, you know, what's happening for them. And then so I was just looking for someone. And then as I say that, I look and there's this guy standing on the bridge by the palace in the temple side. So I go over and he says, "Will you spend 3 days with me?" quite outspoken. I'm like, "Well, actually, I'm leaving tonight on the night bus because I'm going off on this trip. But I will have a few days after the trip before I go I was going back to Peru with my friend. So basically, long story short, we had dinner. I got on the bus. I went off and did this 10-day trip with my friend, and there was a lot of powerful stuff that happened in terms of what I was for the group. I was meant to go to Palenque in order to bring there was something energetic.
Of course. Yes.
So don't know where to start with that, but basically, as part of the process of what I was doing in 2010, 2011, one of the experiences and teachings that I had was Drunvalo Melchizedek's work. And it used to be called Living in the Heart, but now it's called Awakening the Illuminated Heart. And he wrote a book called The Serpent of Light. He wrote many books, like the Ancient Secrets of the Flower of Life. But one of his books is called The Serpent of Light. And in that, it describes the chakras of the temples in Mexico, the Mayan temples. Palenque is the crown chakra. And on the trip, we didn't go to the third eye chakra, but we started at the throat and we ended at the root chakra. And that hadn't been planned intentionally. But I said to my friend, "Do you realize this is what we're doing?" And so it was like I'd brought the crown chakra energy, and in Mayan Kundalini goes downwards, not upwards. So you know the Kundalini teachings come up from the root. The Mayan Kundalini comes down.
Yeah.
And I think I just said Kundalini, which is what they call it.
Can I just intersect something there? Because what really interests me is what you say about, you know, carrying that energy on behalf of other people, and or the land even. And I think just to maybe explain that to those who are watching, is that, I mean, I don't know if it's just a gift that some of us have who can do that, but I know I do that as well. It's carrying the energy of something on behalf of other people or on behalf of the land so that we can transmit it, and have that then into interaction for whatever purpose. So I feel, yeah, so you did that for the group.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, at that time it was so profound and wordless. You know, I mean, it was very hard to articulate. But we went on this journey, and then when the group trip ended, I literally then got back on the night bus and went back to Palenque to spend 3 days with this chap for Christmas. But what I was meant to do was to go back to Palenque site with a man. So it was the masculine and the feminine going in together.
Yes.
And like we went there, and like as I was walking in, it was almost like my legs were turning to jelly. So I got the energy from Palenque, I'd taken it to the group. Whatever then I was bringing back, it was like a full circle that I then needed to transmit into the earth of Palenque. And I was given a very specific, you know, you've got to go to a particular part in the site. And so this is what happened. So yeah,
sorry, I'm going to intersect, because what you were saying about the Kundalini is, you know, some cultures it's about going down, in others it's going up, but in effect it goes both ways. So it feels like that's what you were doing with that journey. You were making that connection, so it was running both ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it was literally felt like I deposited the energy through my body into the earth.
Beautiful.
So that was pretty amazing experience, and my first kind of encounter with Mexico. And then, you know, I'm still with this guy however many years, 13 years later.
You took him home with you.
Well, nearly. He came out the next year, and then we went back. That's what started my part and part life in Scotland and Mexico, is through being in relationship, really, because the UK threw him out after 6 months. So we go back to Mexico for the winter. But yeah, that's what we did in 2013. Was my first experience of going back to Mexico to see what living there for several months looked like.
Wow, that's quite a journey. And what I mean, I could feel it in some, I imagine, small way compared with what it would have been like for you, but I could feel that energy, the way that was, running. That, what a profound piece of work. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I would say those few years were the most intense. Just massive personal and spiritual growth, but also, on the inside, but also then connecting and working in all of these different ways that, hadn't been on my radar before. And all of these experiences in Peru and Mexico, really opened me up to, where my life has gone since then, personally and in my work, and leading that on to running trips in Mexico for other people to be able to come and connect with the land.
And I feel from my personal experience of having done, my work with the land, is especially those first few, like Peru and Mexico seem to have been to you, is like not having a clue. I mean, not having any idea of the sacredness or the spiritual culture or anything, and just ending up in a place, and unraveling or unfolding in front of you, and I feel it needs to be that way, that have that level of innocence almost to for your own initiation.
Absolutely. And, you know, I still work on the basis of very little outside information in terms of visiting places. You know, it's pure energy, purely showing up and engaging with the land and the spirits of the land, or the, you know, in Palenque, there's a spiritual teacher there. And again, when I first encountered that, I didn't really fully understand the profound, but now I'm in relation with that being as a guide, I totally get it. You know, but back then it was like, you know, and you know, honestly, the experiences that have come, you know, we ended up in a private Mayan ceremony at the end of the group trip with the Mayan teacher Humbertsman, and a crystal skull was being handed back to the Lacandon people from the people who'd been its guardian for some time. And so I had the privilege of encountering the crystal skull. But then, so when was that? That was December 2012. And then it must have been 2014. We had the privilege of going to a ceremony back at Palenque where Humbertsman was handing it back over to the Lacandon people, and we happened to be privileged to be part of that ceremony as well. You know, it was like, ever since then, life has placed me, or I place myself through following the guidance of just being in, you know, able to be party to some really amazing things like that. So, and that, you know, just like totally felt like a full circle of energy again from that group trip. And then now we're back in Palenque with the same crystal skull and the same spiritual teacher. And yeah, just extraordinary, just really extraordinary. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for sharing, Tiffany.
My pleasure. Now I can talk a lot once I get going on something I'm passionate about.
I can really feel that, as I was saying earlier, that there's so much that these experiences become so immersive. There is so much more that can be said about them. Yeah, but it can be difficult just to express the potency of those unfolding synchronicities as we live them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's magic. It really is, you know, just dancing with the magic of life.
Yeah.
Really.
So we have a few more minutes. Is there anything else? So, you know, this for me feels like a massive initiation, and you took the Munay Ki rites as well before you went to Mexico, and so that then you end up in what feels like another initiation. So what unfolded for you after, or what led on from your experience?
Yeah, well, I guess I've moved, trying to see what living in Mexico was, kind of the next big initiation, if you like, and I kind of don't do, well, I didn't do things by half. It's like, oh, you know, I'm going to go off for several months, so I rented my flat, and at that time, nearly all of my work was kind of hands-on, in-person stuff, or, you know, there was always distant healing. but I didn't have any particular threads of online work at that time, back in 2013. I don't think there was even such a boom of it. Anyway, when we first went to Mexico, we were staying in this place. My partner thought he was taking me to paradise, but there was a cabana about a minute's walk from the beach, but it was all open plan apart from the bedroom, which had screen windows, and there was the toilet was outside, which was just like the pan with a wooden thing on top, no roof. If it's raining, you've got to go with an umbrella. If it's raining and it's dark, you've got to go with an umbrella and a torch and the toilet roll and hope that something's not going to crawl up where it shouldn't. Massive culture shock. Massive culture shock. We had to tie fabric in the only enclosed place. We had to tie fabric like hanging suspended from the roof to stop gecko or other critter stuff falling on our faces while we were sleeping. And then there was every kind of biting. I had a massive dark night of the soul experience as a result. I'm looking at this beautiful, we're eye level with the jungle, we're near the beach, it's paradise. And I'm thinking, but I'm not designed to hammock hang. I can't just sit here all day doing nothing, and I'd get ready to go out and he'd go, you can't go out at noon in the midday sun here. And I'm going, well, what kind of inhospitable place is this where, you just got to stay in the house all day? It's just like, this is mental, and this is a relatively new relation. It was only a few months into living together. So it was very intense. And I went through this massive dark night of the soul. My body was speaking. I couldn't walk properly. My right hip went out, like where I'd kind of uprooted. I'd given up my work, my home, my community. And I'm just in the middle of nowhere in a new relationship, in this hospitable, beautiful but inhospitable environment, and having a really hard time. And not long before I went, my mum had my human design chart done. And that had piqued my curiosity. And so while I was there, as a means of keeping myself sane, I started learning about human design. And then it all made sense. It was magical to go, okay, I'm having this lived experience, but now I understand why I'm having this lived experience. Because in human design, my type is a generator. So I am designed to work and to do the work that I love. So I wasn't working because I hadn't got an online work thing going yet. I have an open identity G center, which means that I have to be in the right place with the right people for the right opportunities to come. Mm-hmm. And the people around us were definitely not my people. They were all drug smoking, just not my people. And yeah, so there were various different facets of my design where it's like, okay, I'm not in the right place. I'm not with the right people. I'm not working. This is why I'm having such a terrible experience. And so it helped me to understand myself. It helped me to understand my experience. And then really I went on then to study human design in more depth and bring that into my working world, which now is something I do online and ultimately solve the problem of not being able to work so much when I was away. Because when I went, I thought, well, maybe I wanted to work and travel. I thought maybe I'd run my workshops or something while I was in Mexico, but that wasn't how it was meant to be. So, I had an idea of what working while I was away looked like. Whereas human design's now given me a whole new platform. Yeah, which was just hugely healing at the time.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
And so while you're talking about human design, because I understand a little about it, there are these different ways of being a generator, manifesting generator, or a projector, of how that spiritual, we're talking about following spirit, how that spiritual information, or how to respond to that spiritual information can be different. Yeah, do you want to say a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, being a generator, it's a really easy answer, because for each type, there is a strategy of how to approach life correctly. So when we approach life correctly, then we are in alignment with our spirit. We're approaching life in a way that's correct for us individually. And so for me as a generator, I'm designed to wait to respond to what life brings to me. I'm not designed to initiate. I'm not designed to chase after stuff. I could have loads of things that inspire me. The generator aura wants to grasp everything and experience everything, but then I could be running around like a headless chicken, running after the wrong things, if I'm doing that from a place of proactivity or initiation. Whereas if I allow life to bring things to me, then in each moment I can choose, is that something I want to respond to? So just because life brings it to me doesn't mean I have to follow it. I follow it, for me, my authority is if it feels right. That's not the case for every generator. They could be having another inner authority. So there's a uniqueness to how we all respond to life according to our human design type. But yeah, response, and for me as a generator, that is dancing with the magic of life, because there's something to respond to in every moment.
Yes.
If we're aware and we're present and we get out of our own way, if we think we're meant to be going this way, or that's our direction, or this is what we're supposed to do, or whatever, then we can be blocking. What we've got is that we live in this field of infinite possibilities of the universe, and all we have to do is be in alignment and in the right frequency and the right faith for life to bring to us what's correct for us. And if we're present to that, then we see it, then we follow it, So it's like I hear a voice in my head and someone says, you need to go to Palenque. That was my outer confirmation of something that was happening inside. I didn't know about human design then, but that's an example. Someone says you should go to Palenque. Well, there's my outer confirmation. There's my sign for me to go.
Yeah.
And then my friend's trip set the time scale. I could have gone at any time from February when that message happened, but that laid the trajectory. If I'd gone at any other time, I wouldn't have met my partner. We wouldn't have gone through this soul initiation that we've been going through for the last 13 years. So there's a lot in human design that's about divine timing. If we try and force things and we don't go with the flow, and we don't, if we allow life to bring to us and we act in response, then that puts us into a divine timing trajectory. Whereas if we try and force things, then it puts us in the wrong time frame or timeline, and then it doesn't work out. Something like that.
With experience, we feel that when things get a bit clunky, you're like, I didn't follow spirit or my design, or however you.
Yeah, exactly. Because if we're trying to force something to happen, one, it might not be for us, or it might not be the right timing.
Yeah.
So yeah, if we wait to respond, then everything flows and you know, and it can look like synchronicity as well.
Yeah.
You know, and also any sign from the outside is a synchronicity. It can be just something that someone says. You know, have you thought about doing this? You know, there's sometimes I might get someone who says, do I teach something? And if I don't, but I've got the tools for it, then I've got a choice. I can say, well, I haven't been running workshops, but I could, you know. Yeah, so nearly everything that I create in or offer is in response now. So there's my website, this is what I do. People can go to that and then say, I want this, this, or this. Or someone might say, are you running a trip? And I go, oh, well, I was thinking about it. Now I can do that. Or whatever, you know.
Beautiful.
So it's great. It goes back to that yin approach to life of, you know, the yang is the push and the yin is, well, if I just wait, I can be doing other stuff and living my life. I'm not sitting here doing nothing. I'm doing what inspires me. You know, generators are here to do the work they love and the things that they love. So, you know, you do what you love and then you wait and see what life brings you while you're doing what you love. It's easy. No effort.
Yeah.
Magic.
Yeah, it is pure magic. It's beautiful.
Pure magic.
Thank you for sharing that, Tiffany. And
Yeah.
you. Thank you for
Well,
sharing your journey as far as well. We've I know there's a lot more, but we got the cliffhanger and that beautiful initiation in Mexico. Wow. Thank you so much.
no, it's a pleasure. This is a lovely example, isn't it, of, you know, you inviting me to be here.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful. I've loved it. Thank you.
And what's interesting for me is when I first got the idea to do that, I had all these names that I wrote down. I've got this list of names, and then what happens is people will suddenly pop up, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll have them on my podcast. I invite them on my podcast, and then that will be confirmed again. Like you'll pop up again, and so that's when I first got in touch with you. All right, it's time for Tiffany now.
Magic.
And so yeah, that's how it's been working. So. I'm responding. At least I feel I am.
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm.
That's a great example.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
Tiffany. And thank you for watching and listening. Sending you much love from my heart to yours.